fun එක next level කරන dialogue fan blaster.
Tonight, on First at 9 this Saturday the 28th of December 2024. Tagging along, Sri Lanka's economic recovery must be coupled with India's growth, asserts former President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Statement is to enhance Sri Lanka's economic development by coupling our economic recovery to India's sustained and swift economic growth and technological advancement.
Further appreciates India for supporting Sri Lanka during the civil war and the economic crisis. The watchful eye. President Derana calls for a unified monitoring division to curb corruption, fraud and the proliferation of narcotics. Bridging gaps. Prime Minister Dr. Harani Amarasuriya calls for more investments in vocational and tech education. Hails vocational training as a bridge that overcomes a labour market gap. The Ivy League approach. Elite medical school accommodating international students necessary for Sri Lanka, says Sri Lankan Ambassador for Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Bandula Vijay.
Why can't we start a top-notch American curriculum using a medical school in Sri Lanka? We allow students from the rest of the world to come here to learn, bring foreign exchange, branding.
Further calls on the government to bring together US and Sri Lankan experts to form a think tank.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසින් ලබා දෙත හැක.
කන්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත් අපි පරිස්සම්.
Asian Paints Causeway Aquasafe වැස්සත් මට්ටුවෙන් ගෙදරත් තිස්නේ.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story this evening, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that Sri Lanka's economic recovery should be coupled with India's sustained and swift economic growth and technological advancement in order to establish larger markets for the island nation and to create new economic sectors which are expected to be fast growing. Delivering the 7th Atal Bihari Vajpayee Memorial Lecture, the former president highlighted that this combination with India will also enable Sri Lanka to move away from a debt-driven economic model which persisted for the past 2 decades. Revealing expectations that India would become the third largest economic power in the world by 2040, former President Wickremesinghe asserts that this is the powerhouse to which Sri Lanka should be connected. Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now on your top story tonight, former President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that Sri Lanka's economic recovery should be coupled with India's sustained and swift economic growth and technological advancement in order to establish larger markets for the island nation and to create new economic sectors which are expected to be fast growing. Delivering the 7th Atal Bihari Vajpayee Memorial Lecture, the former president highlighted that this combination with India will also enable Sri Lanka to move away from a debt-driven economic model which persisted for the past 2 decades. Revealing expectations that India would become the third largest economic power in the world by 2040, former President Wickremesinghe asserts that this is the powerhouse to which Sri Lanka should be connected.
Hosted by the India Foundation, the 7th Atal Bihari Vajpayee Memorial Lecture was held yesterday in New Delhi in memory of former Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. The memorial address this year was delivered by former Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe, while the session was chaired by Sri Suresh Prabhu, former Union Minister and Chairman of the India Foundation's Governing Council.
It's with great regret that I heard of the passing away of Dr. Manmohan Singh last night. His first budget speech as finance minister in Mr. Narasimha Rao's government changed the course of Indian history. Without that budget speech, there would not have been any economic reform in India. And without those reforms, there would not have been a modern India. I would like to convey the condolences of the people of Sri Lanka. When I became Prime Minister for the second time in December 2001, Sri Lanka was facing a severe political crisis. Sri Lankan armed forces had to fall back under LTT attack and abandoned many areas that were under their control. With the attacks on the main port and airport, vessels and aircraft stopped calling on Sri Lanka, leading the economy shutting down. We had no option but to enter into a ceasefire agreement with the LTT. On becoming Prime Minister, I immediately flew to New Delhi and explained the situation to PM Vajpayee, who also agreed on the need for a ceasefire. Sri Lanka required the support of India to deter further attacks by the LTT and to get the peace talks on track. I always kept Vajpayee ji informed of the progression of our discussion with Norway, Japan and the LTT. As a result of these discussions, I was able to sign a ceasefire agreement with the LTT in January 2002. By 2003, the situation had turned to the advantage of Sri Lanka, strategically, economically and internationally. Prabhakaran knew that he could not gain the upper hand in peace negotiations. At this crucial point, India, supported by us, insisted on a response from the LTT to the proposals made by Sri Lanka government and the early resumption of negotiations. From then onwards, India supported us until the defeat of the LTT in 2009. The calamity of COVID-19 and the consequential economic crisis in Sri Lanka showed India at its best. At the most crucial moment, when Sri Lanka declared bankruptcy, India valiantly stepped up to help us. The Sri Lankan people could not have survived without the $4 billion of financing received from India through various credit lines. It was India's neighborhood first policy in practice that benefited Sri Lanka. All these vindicated my stand on closer economic cooperation with India, including improved connectivity in key sectors. In July 2023, Prime Minister Modi and I announced the Promoting Connectivity, Catalyzing Prosperity, India-Sri Lanka Partnership Vision. This impressive vision document covered 5 main subjects. India agreed to assist Sri Lanka to achieve the target of generating 70% of our power requirements from renewable energy sources. This involved the construction of a multi-product petroleum pipeline from South India to Sri Lanka. These projects would result in Sri Lanka being fully connected to the Indian energy system with the ability to bring in and sell energy. The next important development is the joint statement issued after talks between President Anura Kumar Disana and Prime Minister Modi, fostering partnerships for a shared future. 2024 statement is explicit on the aim of moving Sri Lanka away from a debt-driven economic model. For 2 decades, Sri Lanka's economy has relied heavily on excessive debts, culminating in bankruptcy and economic meltdown. Therefore, the statement is to enhance Sri Lanka's economic development by coupling our economic recovery to India's sustained and shift economic growth and technological advancement. It is expected that by 2040, India would be the 3rd largest economic power in the world. By then, Tamil Nadu's GDP would have exceeded $1 trillion. This is the powerhouse to which Sri Lanka has to connect as a region. All this will establish larger markets for Sri Lankan exports and create 2 new economic sectors which are expected to be fast growing. If Sri Lanka positions itself as a regional logistic hub, we can become a beneficiary of these developments in the region.
Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
Aspirations Education, a pioneer in overseas education. Meet our experts at top destinations worldwide. Your trusted and caring partner in overseas education.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Furthermore, in India, the final rites of late former Indian Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh were performed at the Nigambodh Ghat today. Dr. Singh, who was 92 years of age at the time of his passing, influenced India's economic trajectory and also steered the nation away from a severe financial crisis.
Former Indian Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, one of India's most influential economic visionaries, passed away at the age of 92. Dr. Singh was one of India's longest-serving prime ministers. Several global leaders, including US President Joe Biden, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and French President Emmanuel Macron, issued statements expressing their condolences in the wake of Dr. Manmohan Singh's passing. Dr. Singh's remains, which were placed at his residence, were brought to the headquarters of the Indian National Congress, where the general public, Congress party leaders, and global leaders paid their final respects. Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa too paid his final respects to Dr. Manmohan Singh. Thereafter, Dr. Manmohan Singh's remains were brought to the Nigambodh Ghat, where his final rites were performed. Indian President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended the sombre occasion.
Now back in Sri Lanka, President Anrukumara Dissanayake calls for a unified monitoring division within the Department of Immigration and Immigration, Sri Lanka Customs and the Airport and Aviation Services to enhance security and to curb corruption. The President directed these instructions during a discussion held with key officials from the Department of Immigration and Immigration, Sri Lanka Customs and the Airport and Aviation Services today. The President's office stated that the discussions focused on preventing the entry of narcotics and other prohibited substances into the country, curbing corruption, fraud and irregularities at airports, customs, and halting the unauthorized departure of individuals from the country. The President also emphasized the need for a practical and modernizing process to prevent smuggling, calling for the replacement of the current scanning equipment with advanced modern scanners. President Dissanayake also underscored the urgency of implementing strict disciplinary and legal action to restore public confidence.
Fast-track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
Diabetol සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Prime Group ලංකාවේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට හඳුන්වා දෙන land leasing ලේසියෙන් මීටමක්.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසි ගින්නක් නැහැ.
කිසි ගින්නක් නැහැ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
Apico Met Meals of Samay Sapata Nidian Apico Springs are 4 meters Madiri Rasakin.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Meanwhile, Maltese High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Ruben Gauci, called on Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya at the Prime Minister's office yesterday. The meeting was aimed at deepening bilateral relations with the two nations approaching their 25th anniversary of diplomatic partnership next year. During the discussion, High Commissioner Ruben Gauci underscored Malta's dedication to strengthening collaboration with Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya acknowledged the opportunities for enhanced cooperation and also noted the importance of generating employment opportunities in Sri Lanka's IT and tourism sectors. Dr. Amarasuriya also emphasized Sri Lanka's reputation as a premier tourist destination. Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya asserts that the incumbent government is committed to building a skilled workforce capable of meeting local and global market needs. Addressing an event in Colombo, the Prime Minister stressed on the importance of vocational education as a bridge that overcomes a skills gap in the labour market and called for more investments in vocational and tech education to unlock the immense potential within Sri Lanka's youth.
The certificate awarding ceremony for students who completed diploma programs under the Sri Lanka Vocational Training Authority was held yesterday at the Bandaranayake International Memorial Conference Hall under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya.
For a nation to thrive, for a society to thrive and flourish, we need people with very many different skills. It is the intention of this government to make sure that our education system leaves no one behind, that every child who enters our system will be nurtured and mentored through a process where when he or she comes out of it, a career path is open to him or her. In such a society where our youth have many choices, where our youth see many avenues and paths for their growth and development, that we can call ourselves a country that is truly developed and truly serving the citizens that it is supposed to serve. Vocational education in particular serves as a bridge, addressing a critical challenge for our nation, bridging the skill gap to meet labor market demands. We also want to make sure that each profession is valued, that our society will become a society that recognizes the value and importance importance of each profession and is confident with that profession, in that chosen career, he or she can flourish. Sri Lanka's youth hold immense potential. To unlock this potential, we must invest in vocational and technical education as a catalyst for growth. By expanding training opportunities and providing high-demand courses that's linked to the development agenda, to the development vision that our government has for this country, we want to be able to build a skilled workforce ready to meet both local and global market needs. We hope that you will contribute to the renaissance of this country. Our hope is in you. Whatever our investments, whatever our plans, all of this is done with you in mind. You have the power to change this country. You have the power to change this society, to change the development trajectory that we have been following all these years. So a lot of our hope rests with you.
Furthermore, on the theme of education, Sri Lankan Ambassador for Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Bandula Vijay, is of the view that Sri Lanka must establish a medical school operating under the US curriculum, open to international student enrollments, as a part of an effort to brand Sri Lankan higher education. Joining our current affairs program, he emphasized that establishing a medical school in Sri Lanka, similar to the US-based Harvard and Stanford universities, will boost Sri Lanka's foreign revenue generation, while also branding Sri Lanka amongst other nations as a hub of tertiary education. He also called on the government to bring together educated experts from the United States and Sri Lanka to form a think tank to generate comprehensive plans for navigating Sri Lanka's way forward towards a developed nation.
You speak to a lot of young people, students, whether it's professionals or students alike. You share this knowledge and your expertise. What more can you do from while in the United States, and how can we utilize this knowledge to develop the country? You mentioned about branding, and what's your message to other authorities as well?
Sri Lanka needs new thinking. I think the government is open-minded for this new thinking. But in order to get this new thinking, what I suggest is go to the United States, find 5 or 6 people who are established, brilliant, who have proved that they can do it, and they can do it in the United States, who have gone to school, come out of the school, became inventors, entrepreneurs, built companies, sold products, won awards, who are recognized. That kind of people, 5, 6 people. Then you come back home, then you find people who have done similar things here, like the people who make the electric car, or the people who sell billions of dollars worth of garments to the rest of the world. There are people who have done these things here as well. Get 5 people from here, 5 people from the United States, bring them together, make a think tank. So this think tank now will come up with ideas that what path should we take in order to propel our country forward in technology, in medicine, okay, in education. Think about it. Why can't we start a top-notch American curriculum using medical school in Sri Lanka? We allow students from the rest of the world to come here to learn, bring foreign exchange, and we train them, 200 students a year. We have good income, good reputation, and when you go and land in New York City, when you go to the coffee shop and the guy next to us, how are you, where are you from? I'm from Sri Lanka. Oh, that's where you had that medical school, right? Branding. This is what we have to do, but we have all this resistance to do it. But this is what the new government has to say. Forget that. We are moving forward. We are going to set up a medical school where we bring students. When we go to United States to learn, right? If you take elite schools like Harvard, like USC where I went to, Stanford, they have a quota for foreign students. Stanford, every year, I understand, take about 10, 15 Sri Lankan students from high school here. For what? Because they want, when these students, after they graduate, they know that their parents are going to talk about it. Parents in Sri Lanka say, oh, my son graduated from Stanford, he's there. Or when they come back, they become important government officers. So the Stanford brands itself in other countries of the world. They have this quota for other people from other countries. They're branding. Let's do it here. The students, when they go back to their own country, they talk about Sri Lanka. So in the medical school, American curriculum, when a medical student enters the medical school, on day 1, he's in the clinic. Not 3 3 years later, on day one, he's exposed to clinical conditions, the patients, on day one.
So theory and practical aspects together.
And they do what is known as an integrated learning system. If you learn about the cardiovascular system, they learn about the cardiovascular system along with the lungs, along with the anatomy, all together. How does it function together in using problem-based learning? So integrated learning system, or ILS, problem-based learning, PBL, is inside that. That system builds a medical student, eventually a doctor, who knows how to think when something is wrong in the heart. He's not only thinking about wrong in the heart, but how's the lung involved with it? How's the anatomy involved with it? All that is learning from day one, not after 3 years. This is what I want to bring to this country.
Spokesman of the Ministry of Defence, Colonel Nalin Herath, says non-state military organizations using autonomous weapon systems is a severe threat to international humanitarian law, as most such organizations are not concerned with adhering to international conventions. He made this statement while speaking at a seminar on artificial intelligence and autonomous weapon systems held recently in Colombo. Speaking at the same event, Professor Andrew Kozik of the International Committee of Red Cross stated that the ICRC's position on autonomous weapon systems is that unreliable and anti-personnel autonomous weapons must be banned from use in war.
A seminar organised by the Lakshman Kadirgamar Institute in collaboration with the International Committee of the Red Cross on Artificial Intelligence, Autonomous Weapon Systems and Contemporary Challenges was recently held in Colombo. A panel discussion on autonomous weapon systems and their impact was held during the event.
Now today we are trying to give the decision-making process to a machine, and we are asking the algorithm to analyze and decide whether this human is going to lie or not. Normally the promoting of IHL is the responsibility of the state. Normally the states are the elements which are dealing with ICRCs. Today there are 120 conflicts around the world. Out of 120 conflicts, there are 60 non-state actors also involved. I think everybody understands the behavior of the non-state actors, especially when it comes to non-state armed groups. Non-state armed groups, they are using all artificial intelligence technologies. They have missiles, they have robots, they have drones, everything.
No one say that autonomous weapon systems should be banned. No one say artificial intelligence should be banned. So it's not about that. That's about the specific technologies that are used in a specific way to kill people. So it's not about banning the technology, because indeed it gives a lot of good things as well. It's about actually banning the way the technologies are designed. So what we are talking about autonomous weapon systems. And when we talk about the ICRC position, we need to prohibit unreliable autonomous weapon systems that you don't know what will be the outcome of its attack, whether it will be able to distinct and all the principles that have been mentioned today, or anti-personal, because it's not ethical, because humanitarian considerations, and etc. So that's what we are talking if we talk about the position of the ICRC on AWS.
There's always a dual nature of technology. That's what we are seeing. What you should understand is 1903, when the Wright brothers came up with the flying machine. Within about 10 years, we were bombing each other. So we are using technology and we are fighting wars and we are pushing the planet into peril at a faster speed. The war should not be the primary mechanism of settling an argument. We can look at collaboration, discussion and pushing. So that's why I would say AI and autonomous systems, we can do a lot of things with that. But the moment you weaponize, which seems to be the wrong thing that we should address, so we should address it in a broader way. The weaponizing or this dual nature of the technologies should never be held against a human. And these technologies offer us an opportunity to do greater things, but we are achieving the wrong results by using some fantastic technologies. So I suppose that's the way we should be looking at, not looking at this banning per se on an aspect of a technology.
And now here's a look at the political developments of the day.
Before we took over governance, we fought on behalf of the people. That fight was to criticize the wrongdoings of the former government. Now we have formed a government. We now work with officials who had to work with former administrations. Those administrations never aided the people. State sector officials can now choose to either stand by what they did in the past or reject them. Their problem now is that they cannot give up their past conduct. They neither take effort to understand the mandate of the new government, nor do they understand its nature. They still struggle to understand that President Anura Dissanayaka's mandate was granted to him by the people because of the policies followed by the past administrations. The past administrations didn't take decisions on behalf of the people. They backed importers and multinational corporations. To protect local industries today, we have to fight with the Ministry of Finance. We have to fight with the government's tax policies. We have to fight against subpar products being imported to the country. We have to fight with officials who implemented those policies. They are not prepared to reform those policies. They are not prepared to make way for reasonable proposals. As the Minister of Industries, I am ready to take up that challenge. The government has not been able to pass any relief for the people. In the past, many trade unions and pressure groups took to the streets for matters like this. However, at the moment, trade unions both for and against the government are silent. We took over when the country was bankrupt. We had already entered into an agreement with the IMF. At that moment, we had an agreement to restructure sovereign bonds. Our task was to not push the country into further chaos. We have completed the restructuring of sovereign bonds. We are working according to the IMF agreement. The choice is between following their policy manifesto and not granting aid to the people, or continuing former President Ranil Wickremesinghe's plan, which is the more practical approach.
තියෙන්නේ මඩ අවලාද පමණයි ඔවුන්ට වැඩපිළිවෙලක් බිම ඇතුලේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අපි විපක්ෂයට කියනවා කරුණාකරලා අපි කරන මේ වැඩවලට අකුල් හෙලන්න එපා. අවලාද මඩ වලින් බැහැර වෙලා රටත් එක්ක ජනතාවත් එක්ක ආණ්ඩුවත් එක්ක අත්වැල් බැඳගෙන මේ සත්කාරයට දායක වෙන්න කියලා.
Never have Sri Lankans ever been deceived more than now. This government does not have any economic policy or agriculture policy. They have no plans as well. They deceived the people to secure votes.
Now, in other political news, several party appointments were made at the Lanka Tamilarasu Party's Central Committee meeting, which was held in Vaunia today. Accordingly, former parliamentarian Mave Zenadiraja was appointed the head of ITAC's Central Committee. Meanwhile, CVK Sivanyanam was appointed the acting leader of the Lanka Tamilarasu Katchi. According to MP Nyanamuthu Srination, the relevant appointments will be in effect until the ITAC's next Central Committee meeting. Welcome back. Now, the Director General of the Cinnamon Development Department, Janaka Lindara, says that the department plans to increase Sri Lanka's annual income generated via cinnamon exports from $250 million to $500 million. To achieve the target, the department's Director General revealed plans to increase value-added cinnamon exports, among other efforts particularly aimed at strengthening local entrepreneurs.
Sri Lanka's cinnamon, regarded as the world's best, also ranks in third among Sri Lanka's largest agriculture exports. Speaking to Derana, Director General of the Cinnamon Development Department, Janaka Lindara, revealed plans to double the current revenue of cinnamon exports, which currently rake in approximately $250 million.
Our country receives an annual average of $250 million from the cinnamon industry. With the establishment of the Cinnamon Development Department, we hope to increase the current annual revenue up to $500 million. With the hard work put in by farmers, we export around 19,000 metric tons of cinnamon annually. To achieve our targets, we need to increase cinnamon exports. Cinnamon is traditionally cultivated in Gaul, Matara and Hambantota. We are now planning to expand cinnamon cultivations to regions such as Kurunegala, Puttlam and Mahaweli. The majority of Sri Lankan cinnamon is exported as a raw material, and the export of value-added products is currently low. To increase foreign reserves, we need to increase the production of value-added products. Efforts are underway to support small and medium-scale entrepreneurs with the resources and incentives to encourage this move. We signed a memorandum of understanding with China, which will open the doors for Sri Lankan cinnamon exporters in January next year. We also plan to enter the markets of EU countries and other nations worldwide.
And now here's a look at some corporate news in brief.
Asia Siaka Commodities plc, a tea broking firm, said it gained control of AgriOne Solutions Private Limited, a fertilizer startup, spending 178.5 million rupees and will invest a further 76.5 million rupees in the firm, taking the total to 255 million rupees. Asia Siaka had gained 55.87% control of AgriOne in December, following an agreement entered with Andaradeniya Estate Management Private Limited and Saman Buddhiha Rajapaksa for 178.5 million rupees. With other shareholders also making investments, Asia Siaka's stake in AgriOne will fall to 51%. Meanwhile, Ambion Holdings plc recently announced that the company increased its stake in Ceylon Bank plc by 0.98%, bringing its total holding to 8.61% of the bank's ordinary voting shares. The company stated that this underscores Ambion's growing influence in the financial sector, complementing the recent acquisition of a 9.02% stake in DFCC Bank plc by Ambion Capital plc and its subsidiaries. In other corporate news, Dilma Ceylon Tea Company plc announced the appointment of Anil Lasantha Neomal Diaz as a non-executive independent director of the company and as the chairman of the Board of Audit Committee with effect from the 1st of January 2025. In its corporate disclosure, the company stated that Diaz does not hold any shares in the company as at the date of his nomination to the board.
That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.